All right, buddy, we're back.
We are back, man. Check out the Hendrix t-shirt.
Nice.
See, my dad gives me a different Beatles t-shirt usually every year for Christmas and birthday. Hence why I have 55 of them. No, not since I was a kid, but anyway, but he said I decided to change it up this year and give you a Hendrix. So I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I like that. Yeah, you always have the best shirts on.
Yeah, well, move over, Rover. Let Jimmy take over.
Tom and D.
Two middle-aged idiots. I want to ask you a question though, dude.
Sure.
You've told me that you wake up in the middle of the night and you don't always sleep well. You've told me that.
Oh, I'm a horrible sleeper. Yeah.
You know what? I was too, and I was hanging out with this chick, I don't know, a while back that I was dating or going out with, and every night when we would go to bed, she would say, well, I have to put on my podcast. And she would put on this podcast. And oh my God, the first night I was like, I fell right asleep. And I'm like, this is incredible. So since then, I've been listening to it all the time. And I sleep really well. And I was going to tell you about this to turn you on to it because I really think, it would help you because your whole body gets relaxed. And then you just kind of go on a little adventure. And I love that.
I love that. I mean, I definitely try to go through these routines before going to bed. I have to put down my devices and try to get my mind shut down from work and, kind of slow down a little bit. And then I'd like to read a physical book. That
helps too, because it makes your eyes start to get tired and things like that. But anyway, so I have this podcast that I've been listening to. It's called Sleep Magic. And I've been listening to this podcast. And then all of a sudden one day, because I subscribe to become on the premium subscription, which is only $60 a year because I wanted to listen to all the ones that I couldn't listen to, which sounded awesome, right? So all of a sudden one day they stopped working and I'm only getting half of them. So I'm like, what the hell? So I write a message in, to the creators or whatever. And I actually got a message back from the hostess. And I was like, no way. So then, you know what I did? I said, we have a podcast and I wonder if I should bring her on. And I said, I think, so that's what I did, dude. I got in touch with my sleep hero and she is our podcast guest today, the one and only Jessica Porter. Yay!
How are we not friends already?
That's what I was thinking. When I listen to you every night, I swear to God, I'm like, well, first of all, I could totally date this woman. I mean, she's the coolest woman in the world. Secondly, your voice is so sexy and so mesmerizing that, of course, I didn't know what you looked like at first. And I was picturing you like this 32-year-old dark woman from Spain, with Spanish background maybe, but with an American voice, obviously. But then I see your face and you're even more adorable in person.
You are adorable. Thank you so much. I love that I first of all, I love how you described this situationship with this woman you were having, this person I was seeing, and then that she was a listener.
Her name is Sarah. And yes, Sarah's the one who turned me onto it. And she told me that I'm going to turn, she's like, I'm turning everyone I know onto this because it really works and it's great. And your stories are so fabulous. Now, you've always been somewhat of a storyteller. I mean, I've heard a lot. I've gotten to know you so well during listening to your show, but you mentioned that you started out kind of with this entertainment bug and you were involved in theater and what have you. Do you want to give us a little background on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been the kid who was a total ham, and it's so funny because growing up in the 70s and 80s, I was the ham before the internet. And you really go, oh no, I'm not a ham at all compared to every single other human being developing their own following. But I went to, I did plays in high school and college. And then I went to the graduate program at NYU in acting.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a hard to get into and one of the biggies. And a year into it, I was like, oh, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't think I want to pretend to be other people. I want to be me, which I never really looked into. You know what I mean? It's amazing how many people become actors without knowing who they are.
Well, I studied with Sanford Meisner. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Yeah, but I got to know him before he died. I was out in LA at the Meisner Carville School of Acting. Oh. But his argument to you would be, you're not playing other characters, you're playing yourself under an imaginary circumstance.
with all respect to Sanford, and what I would say as a little homage to Sanford Meisner is, you're wearing a Jimi Hendrix t-shirt. And then you say,
I am wearing a Jimi Hendrix t-shirt. It makes you smile. It does make me smile.
That's a little insider.
Yeah, that's an inside the repetition stuff, right?
But I would actually, what's funny is I became a hypnotherapist in 1999 after having done hypnosis myself to quit smoking during college.
Wow.
And then there was a big gap between my quitting smoking and becoming a hypnotist, but I became a hypnotist. And of the things I've done, one of them, I did hypnosis for childbirth. I did a lot of hypnosis for smoking cessation. I do a lot of emotional trauma stuff. But I developed a whole thing called hypnosis for actors. And I firmly disagree with Sanford Meisner on that. Only because the imagination is so much more flexible than what we call the self. And I know he's saying you are you under imaginary circumstances. And I'm like, no, but if you can unlock the subconscious mind and go in there and completely fill in the character, which we try to do as actors from the conscious mind. We're like, how does this person brush their teeth? And how do they go to the store? And what was it like to have a father like that? But you're really only scratching the surface. But if you do it in a hypnotic trance and you start as that character at zero and you build it out from the inside, you are not yourself. And it's the most beautiful, deep, like finely carved experience, which I would go to acting classes in LA because I did end up going back into acting just for fun. And my teacher, would work on the scene for the first week and then the second week. And he's like, haven't you done your hypnosis yet? And I hadn't. I'd been lazy. And then I would do it and come back the next week. And he's like, there it is. Now you're in. Now you've completely transformed. Wow. So with all respect to Sanford Meisner, you know what I mean? Like huge influence, great work. Oh. But you looking at acting start to understand hypnosis, because acting is a form of hypnosis. So the better you understand hypnosis, the better you understand the actual puzzle pieces of acting.
Okay. So I think that lays a platform for what we should start off with very simply for our own understanding and our audience. What is hypnosis? Because I think that we all have an idea about it, and probably from movies and TV shows.
Like seeing the thing go back and forth.
Yeah, we're like, under someone else's trance, and we don't have power over ourselves. Or, Office Space is like one of my favorite movies, where he's hypnotized, and he just has this fucking attitude with his job, and which is great. I love that. But dispel the myths for us. And I guess, again, just starting off, what is hypnosis?
Well, hypnosis is a totally natural state of mind that you go in and out of dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. It's basically making a shift into perceiving from your more subconscious mode. Now, the subconscious mode isn't unconscious. It's just sort of below the layer of the chatter. And we are perceiving from that place all the time. It's like your emotions are there, your imagination's in there, your habits are run on a more subconscious level, your body, any sort of knowing you get from your body or intuition comes from this more subconscious place. And so when we do hypnosis, there's a lot of techniques. There's hypnotic inductions that help us to shift into that place. But I think the less sort of parlor gamey, the better. Really, when you relax your body really deeply, you begin to shift and go down to that deeper level of perception. And when we make that shift, we actually perceive differently. Like the conscious mind perceives kind of an us and a them. It's sort of dualistic. It's analytical. It's rational. It likes the facts. It likes to, it's sort of ego-centered. But when you dip into that place that's softer and deeper, you perceive more holistically, your emotions move more easily, there's less disconnect between you and yourself or other people. And so when I say you go in and out of hypnosis several times a day, when you're driving home and you just start daydreaming and you're not paying attention to like, oh, I'm at a stoplight, I must stop now. Your body's just doing it because you're trained to do it from a body level. That's a state of hypnosis. And people freak out sometimes. They're like, I drove home and I didn't even think. And I'm like, great. That means you're a really good driver. Like, awesome. Like spacing out, looking at a fire, getting super involved in a movie. Movies to me have to pass the, like, I have to pee test. Like if I'm so in a movie that my having to pee is like, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm in. That means it's some pretty successful hypnosis. So it's just whatever like really engages.
Are there like deeper and deeper layers to being in a hypnotic state?
Absolutely. And you can get better and better at it. It's a practice. And it's not, that's why with Sleep Magic, this podcast that I do, I say to people, you can't aim at sleep. Like once you are neurotic enough about sleep, once it's become enough of a problem that you're like thinking about how well you're going to sleep tonight or how to sleep well tonight. I mean, it's like saying, I want to fall in love, or you can't try to float. You can't try to have an orgasm. Like these are things that there's a certain passivity.
Darren's like,
I try often.
You can absolutely set the environment and do everything you can to support it, but the actual physiological function is something that you allow. So more so in women than in men. But,
right. Fair enough.
So you can't aim at sleep. Like as soon as you're aiming at sleep, you're getting in the way.
Right.
But what you can aim at is relaxation. And you forget even hypnosis. Like I understand hypnosis. I understand that what I'm doing when I take people into relaxation, that I know how to craft the language in a way. I know how to use my voice in a certain way.
Oh, does she know how to use her voice? Oh, my land.
That like conks people out.
Yeah.
But really the principle is that if you take yourself into profound relaxation, and the state between normal waking state and sleep is called a hypnoidal state. So it's this weird in between the chatterbox and the deep relaxation of the body. And there are levels and layers. But I say to people, let's aim at relaxation. Because first of all, you can do that. You can actively relax. I mean, that's a thing we can practice and do. And second, and wait, sorry, let me rewind. Actively aim at relaxation, because lucky for us, this is like my catchphrase. I want a catchphrase. I want a t-shirt. Lucky for us, relaxation lives right next door to sleep. So if you go to profound relaxation, sleep's going to come find you. Like it's going to come over for that cup of sugar. But the other part of it, which is really helpful, is that even if all you do is hang out in profound relaxation for an hour or two, that's sometimes even better than sleep. Like that's not nothing. That's incredibly restorative and nourishing.
Especially if you have restless leg syndrome. I mean, it's like you might be doing that when you're sleeping and getting a workout. Or if you've eaten, your stomach's still, but you're right. Absolutely. You can become relaxed and sometimes, laying down for 20 minutes and just relaxing is going to do just as much as sleeping for 20 minutes.
If not more, just because there are levels of sleep that are relatively superficial, ones that are more restorative, that do different things. So really taking yourself down to the equivalent of quite a deep level of sleep if the mind is calmed down.
And now a word from our sponsor. And back to the show. Yeah. And again, you're using story, is that right?
Not always.
Okay. So is it music too, or what's your...
There is music. There's sort of like 4 or 5 different tracks that we alternate. And I'm not in charge of it all. I'm not like the engineer of the whole thing. But I try and cycle between like travelogue, reading from books, but then really 50% of the content is like handling burnout, managing anger, staying resilient in an unsteady world, self-esteem, self-care, gratitude, stuff that is really like, my thing is that relaxation is like a secret weapon. Like there is everything good comes from relaxation. Everything. Minus like running away from a lion. Everything else, like wisdom, love, clarity, creativity, intuition, is channeled through a more relaxed place. So, and then from this place, and to get really woo-woo about it, is like you're opening up what I call your inner being. Like we have an energy self, we have this material meat body, you know, and then we have this energy matrix that we also are. And the more you relax and let go, the more you can let that energy move and do what it needs to do. So it's an opportunity to love it, to fill it, to nourish it. And for me to give suggestions to that inner being, that's like, you know, the second quality of hypnosis is not just that you're going to that different mode of perception, but that people become more suggestible in that mode of perception. So the stuff that you say is getting past what we call the critical faculty. The conscious mind is fucking useless. It's like, no, let's solve a puzzle. Let's do an IQ test. You know what I mean? It's not, all it's doing is this weird, like ticker tape astronaut stuff, with all respect to astronauts. But in terms of like living our dirty human lives, if we don't get into this place, like the volcano of who we are, the energetic event that every person is, like that's what's here to be unleashed. And it's pure positive energy, especially if you keep suggesting that it is.
Right. And so if I heard you right, it sounded like you were suggesting too that you get better and better at it. Like you graduate to another level.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know that I'm getting better and better at it and I've done it for almost a year now. I did want to introduce you, Jessica. This is my cat, one of my cats. This is Badu. Every single night, are you ready for this? Soon as he hears your voice and he hears the waves and in the intro music, he runs into my room, jumps right next to me. And he starts, kneading and sucking on his little blanket. Literally, though, it's the funniest thing. I'll go, it's time for Jessica. Come here, Badu. But I don't even say that. Now all I do is turn it on and he hears it and he runs into the room, jumps in. He knows what time it is.
That's so lovely. And thank you for sharing that because I've had a lot of people report that their animals respond to it. But like, well, we all have a part of our bandwidth that is like loving, kind, maternal energy. You know what I mean? We know it from the utero. I mean, in utero, like, and that's what I've decided. Like, I have other levels of my bandwidth. I do stand-up comedy in LA. Like, I'm not all this all the time, but I was mothered in a really, really loving way. I was like, my mother just dumped trucks of love into me and acceptance. And I feel like I can easily channel that. And hypnosis is the great, relaxation is the great conduit. And the internet, I mean, comes along and goes, pa-poom, like let's scale this easily.
Yeah.
Okay. We can't just let that bomb that you dropped.
Yeah. Which bomb?
The one that you are doing stand up in LA. So come on.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of bombing, no. I do stand up because I have what I call like the defective gene of needing to get up on stages. And I mean, my father was a courtroom lawyer for 58 years. My mother was a high school teacher. Between the two of them, there's like a real stand up and talk to audience gene. And I really mean it when I say the defective gene, because people look at me like, oh, that's the scariest thing. It takes so much courage. I'm like, unless you have a defective gene, which not only wants to get up on stage, but like literally wishes ill on the person in front of me. Like just get off stage.
Yeah, get that big cane and pull them off the stage and let you get on there.
My turn.
Right.
So it is the perfect balance to sleep magic. I can't even tell you. Sleep magic like handles this and this and this, and stand up is like lower chakra, just like, it's the id, it's the unconscious. Like funny stuff is when you like poke at the unconscious, and I love doing that.
So do you bring this idea of and the topics of hypnosis into your act, or is
Never
that completely
have,
separate?
not
Really?
once. I mean, it's something to be plumbed in the future for sure. I don't find it funny. You know what I mean? A good joke is based on a complaint. You know, like funny starts with a negative opinion about something, and I mean not every joke, but like a good joke is
Wow,
something
in
where
that case, Tom is fucking hilarious.
I'm hilarious, he said in
Tom
that
is
case.
yeah, well, you know, you should do stand up. But so I do jokes about what I complain about, like just aging and you know the world, young people.
Yeah, there's a lot of material in people in different generations than ours. That's
Yes.
for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I just as an example, I mean, this guy, I'm selling my house, and most of our listeners know that. And since you don't know, Darren and I went to Indiana University in Bloomington together, and I've got an opportunity to teach at my alma mater in the media school, and I'm also hoping to teach some acting classes as well. But and the cost of living compared to Denver and everything else. So this idea came about like 9 months ago, and my house has been on the market and it hasn't sold. And as you can tell, it's a beautiful historical home. But my mom said this damn generation, like these millennials and things like that, this guy came in and he was like, yeah, well, I'm hoping to have a roommate to help pay for part of the thing. And I'd have to walk all the way around to the garage through the alley if I give him the back room. And I'm like, oh, my mom's like, oh, you have to walk a little bit to the garage. Like, these people want everything. They do. This younger generation expects everything, wants everything, and they don't know anything about. And that, which is funny because when we were kids, you know, the walking up to school uphill both ways, that night might not have been true, but it is an actual analogy that we actually did walk to school. You know, we actually did, you know, do things besides having everything done for us, you know?
Okay, just to push back a little bit, though, I heard the same thing from my parents, you know, that when I was a kid, this younger generation, and they probably heard it from their parents. So I don't know, maybe it's a disconnect between all these generations and just not quite understanding how we deal with things, you know, and maybe it's a part of growing up that we look at, you know, it's okay to walk. Maybe we complain too. I don't know.
I think you're absolutely right that at that age we were as entitled, self-centered, like whatever it is. Like I had stupid opinions. I'm not saying all of their opinions are stupid at all. I'm just saying I was in my own bubble that was you know, was connected to my context and my age. The difference is we didn't have the internet as some bullhorn. So we're all hearing each other's conversations. Our parents didn't listen to us. They weren't sitting there interested in like the bullshit we were creating or the wisdom that we had. Like either way you slice it, there just wasn't this intergenerational, almost like we're all in this cesspool of information together. And what's interesting about the internet, I have like big theories. I feel like the internet came along in our lives, the three of us, right in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
boom, let's say 2000 is a year that we all started to really pay attention to our laptops and like tune into this other existence. The internet, we're all the same age on the internet. Like there was no wisdom on it. There was no elder. There was no perspective. There were no generations. It was like the whole world just went boom. And we've all sort of developed at the same rate. Meanwhile, the three of us have actually developed in real life in a different way that you develop just through experience in the actual world and seeing patterns in your life and learning and having your heart broken and figuring out how to pay your taxes, like all of that. But digitally, you have this immaturity from everyone because it's functionally an immature platform. But I hope as younger people for whom they were just baked in the digital cake, as they mature as humans, they will lend a certain maturity to the internet and be like, you know what, that person said that 20 years ago. So can we ignore it? Instead of like the freak out that someone said something inappropriate 20 years ago, which all of us understand, like, don't judge me by who I was 20 years ago. But when you're 24, you don't really get what that is. And time has been collapsed into this pancake on the internet. So that's the difference, I think, between our parents. And yeah, they did complain about us being like lazy and entitled, and us complaining about them. We weren't in the same discourse.
And now a word from our sponsor. And back to the show.
I want to mention something else that I've found, because I'm a voice actor. That's what I do for a living. And one thing that I refuse to do is audiobooks or books on tape. I just, for whatever reason, I think mostly it's because, not saying that I can't pick something up and read it for the first time and not make a ton of mistakes, but it's the editing that's involved. And, and it's you don't usually pay a lot unless you're someone like Johnny Depp and they're saying, come on into the studio and sit there with your bottle of Jack Daniels and read this book, and we'll do all the editing for you, and then we'll pay you $100,000 for being the voice of this book. Your ability to read on the podcast, when you read a book, and I don't know how many times you make mistakes and they edit it and fix it, but your storytelling when you're reading from a book is unbelievable. And I'm just curious, have you ever done any audiobooks, or have you thought about doing that? Because I am just mesmerized every time I hear you read something. I wish I could read a book that good, that clearly, and I can see things when you're reading. I can picture the last one. I could picture this tea being served and the guy walking. I mean, I'm picturing Virginia Woolf. It was Virginia Woolf, and I'm picturing this whole thing. I'm picturing even like where they were sitting on the couch. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering if you've ever done audiobooks, or have you ever thought about doing them?
I've done 2 audiobooks. One was a book that I wrote myself. I've written a couple of books. And one was a book by a Canadian author, because I'm originally Canadian and can do kind of a Canadian accent, which not everyone can do. So, but answering one of your other questions, there's an engineer in there, like punching and rolling on every mistake that I make. And so what ends up being a 40-minute podcast probably took an hour to do.
Okay. So you're human, just like Darren and I are.
Oh yeah. And I get, your voice gets like clicky and lazy and pops, and beyond just the screw ups. But I also think I'm reading from the point of view of an actor. I think the acting lessons, and frankly, let's really give credit where credit is due, these are great writers. I chose a book the other day because we're limited to the public domain. So that's limited. And it was by this author who was relatively famous. I hadn't actually heard of her because I'm not a huge reader myself, but like British, 19th century. And the book was like it was in the canon of, and I read it. I mean, not the whole book, but I read some was like, I don't want to read this. Like, it's not poetry. But when Virginia Woolf is stunning. So as long as, I remember taking an acting class where someone said about Shakespeare, all you need to do is say the words. Like, it's in the words. So don't layer too much onto it. When there's a character, you're not reading a line. Like if someone says like, I need to get out of this house, then you don't sit there, and a bad actor will sit there and go like, I need to get out of this house. And you're like, no, what do you really? It's like, I need to get out of this house. Like the human brain doesn't pick up the words and decode the words. The human brain feels the intention, and the words ride on the intention, and they just slip right in without anyone thinking. So when a character's speaking, I'm sitting there going like, oh, I don't know. Or, I'm giving them intentions.
Yeah, while at the same time, though, you can give your own spin, I would think, and giving some subtext to it, and just the way that you say something could have, again, that subtext where it puts on a little different meaning. It could be a line like, hand me that knife. And you could be, hand me that knife. Hand me that knife. There's 1,000 ways to say it. And it takes on different meanings.
Fine, hand me that knife. It's like the frustrated serial killer.
True. And what I said about Shakespeare sounds like too clinical, but what they were basically saying is trust the words. You will find everything in the words. And even if you haven't figured out some deep thing, the words are carrying that script. Shakespeare was so great that, I mean, it's a bonus when an actor imbues it, but it's poetry without it too. So
yeah,
true.
You know what I want to hear someday are the outtakes of Sleep Magic. I think it'd be the funniest thing to hear you like swear or get mad at something, or it's like get yourself into a safe and comfortable. God damn it. Okay, let's start again. Get yourself into a safe and comfortable. I'm feeling pretty comfortable. The way you're looking at me, Mr. Engineer, is making me feel a little silly in the pants.
There's a lot of burping. There's a lot of burping. There's a lot of stomach noise. You don't know your stomach's making noise until you do a podcast in a booth with a mic, right? It's like, what the hell is
that? Exactly. No, I always thought that would be really funny, though, to hear the outtakes this week of Sleep Magic over the where it's just hilarious, and it's not making you relax and go to sleep. It makes you laugh. Makes you laugh, though.
I want to be done. I tell you, the point where I realized I couldn't do more than 2 episodes a day because I get so relaxed in the booth. Like, I'm not prompting you to relax. I'm relaxing and you're in training with me. So I can't do that 3 times in the morning. It's too much.
Hearing you talk too about reading and putting people into this hypnotic state, it really makes me think about even parents reading to their kids and putting them to sleep, with a good story.
It's all about the vibe. Like a parent, unless they're agitated, when the parent is agitated, just being like, go to, like Samuel L. Jackson, like get the up to sleep. If you're really in there, really in the moment with your kid and like, blah, just being in the vibe, then your kid feels safe. And that when your kid feels safe, they relax. And when they relax, sleep comes and finds them. And it is just basically tricking the mind to allow the body to do that.
Well, you did read us Winnie the Pooh, and I enjoyed that one. I never got through it until finally one time I got all the way to the tree and all the things that happened by the tree and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it is. I haven't really thought of that until Darren just mentioned that, though. But it's like when you do read a book, like especially a book like Winnie the Pooh, it is kind of like you're reading to a child to put him to sleep. It's like that is like the quintessential. No matter what the movie or the TV show is like, well, Daddy will be home soon, and he'll read. Well, is he going to read me a story before I go to bed? It's like that's like the quintessential parent thing to do is to read a kid a story, and you are almost like doing that for us.
Yeah. Do you ever go off script and try to okay, they're probably in a kind of a deeper hypnotic state now. I'm going to just slide something subliminal in there,
right?
Okay, just to kind of mess with people. Just have fun. I mean, you're a comic too, so you gotta entertain yourself.
Join premium. You're thinking of joining. It's only $60 a year, and you will get all the bonus coverage and the mailbag. You'll get it all.
Right.
Okay, back to the relaxation.
In the honey pot. Yeah. No, it's funny. I've never thought to do that only out of just like respect for the authors.
Oh yeah.
I do, that said, sometimes we do dumb down some of the writing if it's not sleep adjacent, meaning, you don't go to a chapter that's about a war or murder or someone losing their parents, like anything that's going to trigger a listener into anxiety. Either you avoid that chapter altogether or you smooth it out somehow. And sometimes editors will change a word and I'll be like, wow, I don't think that's the real word. And they would have, dulled it down a bit.
So in addition to, or maybe in lieu of doing, the sleep magic and other methods for hypnosis, do you do therapy sessions where you're working with people one-on-one or in groups?
Yeah, absolutely. I did hypnobirthing in groups for 10 years and I taught people all over the world. I have a practice. It's amazing how well hypnosis works over Zoom. when someone's doing hypnosis, their eyes are closed and they're listening to me. And that's all that's required. So if there's a good Wi-Fi and I can see them and see their responses, people can do profoundly healing work at a distance. So my practice not only didn't die during the pandemic, it kind of got ramped up. And now I work with people all over the world. And yeah, I mean, there's things I'm good at and things I'm not good at. And I'm careful to like send people away when I feel like I'm not the right person for them. But, you know.
Does your podcast fuel some of those clients?
Absolutely.
I would think so, because listening to you every night, which I have for almost the last year, it's like if I was going to hire someone and I thought that I needed some personal work with some hypnosis, who better to turn to than someone who already puts you in a relaxed state, you know?
Well, precisely. And a big part of hypnotic success is a rapport with the hypnotist so that you will relax with them. And people come to me with that rapport already established.
Yes.
And also another factor in success is making sure that the client doesn't have a fear of hypnosis. Like you guys were alluding to, like all these hypnotic cliches are not like, you know, the Manchurian Candidate or whatever, like these movies that,
even like in 70s TV or 80s TV, like Fantasy Island or whatever show you were watching, there's always every couple episodes there'd be something with that little, you know,
or the swirl. Look into the swirl.
Yeah, right. Look into the swirl.
Look into my eyes.
What hypnosis became somewhere along the way, and it's really unfortunate, is what we call a theatrical conceit. You know, like a theatrical conceit, like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edgar Albee, that ends up being like the greatest shit show of all time in the theater, would not have happened without alcohol on the stage. So every 15 minutes, people are reloading, and that permits them to behave more and more erratically and irresponsibly and inappropriately. So alcohol is a theatrical conceit. Hypnosis is a theatrical conceit, and it's based on the idea that people don't understand it. So if in the zeitgeist is this misunderstanding that a hypnotist can make someone do what they don't want to do, then boom, you could write the best script in the world based on that premise. But not only is it not true, it's the opposite of the truth. When you're in hypnosis, you're way more connected to what you really want and your values, and you'll protect them much more vigorously than you would just dicking around in your conscious mind.
Well, how does that work then for smoking? Because I mean, I don't know if I vape still, but I used to be a smoker, but it was a lot easier to switch to vape than to get hypnotized.
Okay,
but,
you're still a smoker if you're vaping. Come on,
but I'm saying that I'm a cigarette smoker. I'm not smoking cigarettes and stinking up my house and my hair and my breath and my clothes. But Darren, you keep your opinions to yourself. No, but what I'm wondering is that when you go in for, hypnosis for cigarette smoking, because you just said it's not like you're completely asleep and then I snap my finger and you're like, what just happened? Where was I for the last hour? No, you're just saying you're still there. But it's a deeper layers have been peeled off. So how does that work for the smoking to try to instill or plant seeds that they will not want to do that again?
Well, smoking is, I won't say tricky, although that's the first word that's coming to my head. All hypnotic change is fueled by a desire to change. That has to be there. If it's not there, a hypnotist is like out of luck. That's why, the Republicans don't waste a penny advertising to Democrats, because Democrats will never become Republicans, and vice versa. And what everyone's aiming at is the undecided or the independents in the middle, because what they're signaling is, I could change. So what's necessary for a smoker, and half of what you do as a hypnotist who helps smokers, is sit with them on the phone before you've ever done hypnosis with them and say, tell me about your relationship to cigarettes. And they say, well, my wife really wants me to quit. Bye-bye. I'll talk to you in a year. What I need, and I'll say this, is like, I need you to tell me when we get to a place where not every single cigarette, more than 50% of the cigarettes you smoke, you could hold up in front of you and say, I hate you and I want my life back. And you really feel that. because it has to be fueled. It's a big change. Now, hypnosis is going to make the transition into being a non-smoker much, much easier. But nicotine has like a 72-hour kind of withdrawal window. And I mean, when I do smoking cessation with people, I babysit for the first day. I call them every 4 hours. I then call them like every 6 hours for the next couple of days. I see them 48 hours into it and have a second session, and I get them through that window. And then I have them listen to the recording like several times a day if necessary. That's what I did when I quit smoking. But someone has to really want to get out of that hell to do that. And you have to vet people to make sure they're ready. And you say to them, listen, if we do this before you're really ready, you're going to come away from this feeling like a failure, thinking hypnosis doesn't work. I'm a crummy hypnotist. And none of those things are true. So, but the problem is you can't make yourself be ready. And the problem with smoking is that it has a really long lifespan as an addiction. It takes people a long time to get really sick and tired of smoking versus like with cocaine. Cocaine's going to wreck your life in a year.
Right.
Crystal meth will wreck your life in 6 months.
Right.
You know, and now that doesn't mean you dance into a hypnotist when you're tweaking. Like that may not be they have really quick sort of destruction cycles, but smoking is a very slow destruction cycle. So there's a lot of denial involved, but when someone's ready, boom, it's a perfect tool.
Yeah. And it's like that. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Alan Carr?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I read the first time I quit smoking was the Alan Carr book. It worked great. No, but one of the things he says is that you've got to be ready. It's like the first thing is like, if you don't want to quit, then this is not going to work. But you've got to literally want to say, I am sick of this controlling my life. I'm sick of the smell. And he can go on for hours and hours and chapters talking about how much money it's costing you, how bad it is for you, and how cancer and how your loved ones. I mean, they go, we already know that shit, though. We already know that it's expensive. We already know that it smells. We already know that it's going to kill us if we keep doing it. But we got to want to. We've got to say, you know what? I'm just done of this thing controlling me. I'm just done with it. Will I miss it? Maybe I'll miss it, especially if I'm drinking or having my coffee or doing your certain things where it becomes almost part of that ritual. But, you know, one of the things he says is the first day you've quit, don't avoid smokers. Go out there on the smoke break with everyone else, knowing that, because he teaches you a different method of saying that, like, I've got this little monster inside me. It's kind of like, you guys are suckers, you know? Yeah. But it's interesting, though, how important it is. And I think that with a lot of things, too. I mean, quitting drinking. It's like you've got to want to quit drinking. If you're an alcoholic, you got to say, my life is fucked up. I really got to end this now. You can't say, but I do like it, you know? It's kind of like, yeah.
Well, but for and even then, even when someone gets to that bottom, gets to that choice point, gets to that scary place, you know, first of all, hypnosis is a great set of tools because nicotine is both a chemical addiction and a process addiction. And you referred to that like this, you know, coffee after a meal with a drink, whatever. And hypnosis is great at undoing the process addiction. It's really good at you going like, oh, wow, my habits are in my subconscious mind. Let's create new habits. And you do. And that is a huge advantage for the hypnosis quitter compared to the cold turkeyer. And you know, the alcoholic who comes to that choice point, if they're lucky, they'll get into AA, which is a whole hypnotic support system, you know, that helps you change your patterns, helps you live on this other plane. Because without that, you know, it's a pretty pernicious addiction.
Absolutely.
By the way, I just got to make mention here that when Tom was going off about Alan Carr, I think that's the person's name, right? And you know how you got to really want it, and quitting smoking. Right after you went off, finished up your spiel, you took a big hit off your vape juice.
I think it was our first episode of this show that Darren and I did, and I was filling up my vape juice. and he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just filling up my vape. And he was already rolling, and then all of a sudden he was like, so I thought you quit that. I said, well, I did. He goes, I said, obviously it went pretty well, didn't it? As I hit off of it, right?
Oh my God.
Vaping's a bit of a whole other thing. I got out of smoking cessation, as my primary hypnotic sort of tool or service that I offered before vaping came along. And I think vaping is, you got to go to someone who's really good at it, who has some experience, because it's an all day, everyday thing. That's
it is in your car, you don't have to have that special, let's go out and have a cigarette thing, where it's kind of like, you go out with a buddy and it's like a social situation. No, you're doing it. I mean, to be honest with you, I have traveled abroad, sitting in, business class where it's the easiest to do, like 7 or 10 flights where I'm doing it the whole time, where, I'm just kind of sitting back, and especially if I have my coat kind of like pulled up, like I'm napping, and I have my seat back, it's like I vape the whole way. Every flight I take, I can sneak it.
At least with smoking cigarettes, there was a social stigma. There's the smelly, there's a lot of crap that your subconscious mind can really develop a push against. And I think it's more difficult with vaping.
Well, my new excuse is that I've packed all the books. See, if you see this, no, you can't see it there. But anyway, I have this bookshelf, and that was where it was, but I had to pack them up when I was getting my house ready for show quality. So I say, oh, my Alan Carr book's all packed up. I'll wait until I get to Bloomington before I quit.
It makes sense that every single time the idea of quitting enters your subconscious, you double down. That's not unusual. And people will often say oh, I have an appointment with you on Thursday, but I'm smoking more than ever. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Well, that's what Alan tells you. Alan tells you in his book to keep on smoking until the last page when I tell you to quit. It's kind of like, you enjoy these, do it. I'm not telling you to start weaning off. It's like, no, because by the end of this book, you're going to want to quit. You're going to do that last ceremony.
You did not read that last page. You're like, I know what's coming.
I know what's coming. It's like, keep on putting it off, So Jessica, you mentioned you wrote a book. Was your book involving some of this stuff that we've talked about today, or was it a nonfiction or fiction?
No, it was a book called The Hip Chick's Guide to Macrobiotics. And I got into growing up on Baskin Robbins and steak and canned vegetables, I got into really healthy food at about 23. And I got deep into what we call the macrobiotic diet and lifestyle, which is, for anyone who's not familiar, basically whole grains are the principal food, and plant-based proteins generally, lots of vegetables, miso soup, seaweed, very little processed sugar.
Yeah, boring stuff that tastes like shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But mildly Japanese, from a Japanese sort of heritage. And I actually went on to become a private chef who worked for people and cooked for people who were often in really serious health conditions. And that's part of why I became a hypnotherapist, was thinking I want to help my clients who I'm cooking for, get on board mentally as well. And because it's a big thing to stop eating everything you've ever eaten and start eating this, what feels like deprived diet, until you get into it and realize you're getting more energy than you've ever had in your life. And so I wrote this book called The Hip Chick's Guide to Macrobiotics, and it became the primer for introducing macrobiotics to people, because it was funny and it was modern, and my voice is pretty strong in it. And I explain these laws of the universe as put forth by sort of my grand teacher, a guy named George Osawa, who came from Japan with this information. So yeah, and then I wrote another book called The MILF Diet, which was also about the macrobiotic diet, but about how women can age beautifully. But that title actually killed it. It was...
I don't know. I think it's kind of cute. I don't know, because people know what a MILF is, and we all would love to be a MILF not me.
Yeah, it came out in 2013, and it was before our world was maybe it was on the verge of the utter saturation of pornography to our world. But it was like the editor who bought it loved it, and I got a big advance, and it was all exciting. And the book itself is not like dirty or weird at all. It's teaching macrobiotics, because macrobiotics is a lovely way and a healthy way to help both men and women stay young and fit and flexible as they age.
But do you ever still eat you would never have a desire to have a nice juicy steak on your birthday or something?
No, I mean, it's not my undesire to have a steak is not a principled ethical thing. It's that I'm not saying there isn't room for that. And I love a good, activist, but that's not where I'm coming from. It's, I have no inclination. I would much sooner eat a piece of fish or even some chicken, and that I don't do that often at all.
Right.
But so, in my early 20s, I get into this way of eating, and believe me, I'm kind of a lapsed macrobiotic now in terms of my choices are much more like processed and convenience and whatever.
Right.
But it was really this insanely powerful set of tools. I mean, holy crap, like at its best, with a willing participant whose condition hasn't completely gone over the cliff, you're like pulling people back from increasingly serious disease.
Right.
And if you're in good health, it just makes you feel like $1 million. So that book, and I never knew I could write. I can't even read. I'm not a reader. I like the joke in my family is that I have written more books than I've read. I suddenly just felt I needed to write this book, and it came through my intuition. And it was like my intuition, when you eat that clearly and that cleanly, like your intuition gets stupid strong. And it was like, write a book. And I was like, that's insane. And I listened to it for a year. And then I finally was like, okay. And I got on my computer and I opened a file. I was like, I guess this is my book.
Yeah, you're a lot like me. I don't read as much as I should, but I've probably written more than I've read. It's been so fascinating talking to you. And like I said, it's a kind of a dream come true to actually sit in and look at your face and become a person that I feel more connected with than ever before. And I just want to thank you for not only being on the podcast, for really having a positive effect on my life and so many other people's.
And tell the people where to go to find out more about you.
Well, you can go to Jessica. I think it's Jessica Porter Hypnotherapy, or J Porter Hypnotherapy is my website.
You don't know your own name? Come on.
I don't care. I am not me, Darren. I'm like I'm the nothingness underneath everything.
But to tell Sleep Magic is pretty easy to find.
Yeah, Sleep Magic you can find on any podcast platform. There is a Sleep Magic for kids, and it's not that. Look for like the trippy, like orangey, purpley sort of artwork.
Yeah.
An award for. And
wow.
You can listen to it anywhere or on the
kind of yellow submarine like, almost like.
It is. It's and that's how I
or Peter Max, something like that,
Yeah. Well, you guys have been fantastic. You're like
thank you.
You're like the guy versions of me. You know what
That's
I mean?
what I think. The more I listen to you, the more I think that it's like she's the sister that I never had, like my twin. It's like, what's going on here? But yeah, we love to have you on, and you're always welcome back. And I hope you mention on your podcast, not only Badoo, you got to sometimes say goodnight to Badoo, because I was going to write you anyway and tell you that my cat comes over every night and sits next to me. But yeah.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate it.
Well, I just cut her off.
You just cut her off. You're out of here.
Okay. She was amazing.
Amazing. I didn't know she was a chef, though. I will say a couple of her episodes. One we baked a cake, but we didn't just bake a cake. We did it in Malibu, like overlooking the ocean, and like in between the while you're waiting for some dinger to go off, you're sitting out there in the breeze looking over the ocean. So it was pretty nice. And we made a lasagna recently. And
my God, I know, that's amazing. I mean, talk about a multi-hyphenate. I mean, by my God, okay, chef in a way, I guess an actor, a voice actor,
comedian,
an author, a comedian, hypnotherapist. I think she does everything but minor tooth extraction.
Well, she does do that, but she'll.
Okay.
And the good news is you won't need to be put under sedation. She'll just put you under hypnosis and yank that thing out of there. Dude, it's been great as always, Darren.
I know. I can't wait for the next one. That was really, really cool. Tom, thank you so much. That was a great surprise.
You got it, buddy.
Absolutely loved her.
Love you, old buddy.
Love you too, man. Later,
dude.
Tom and D.
Two middle-aged idiots.
This podcast is produced by 224 Media with voice and audio support by Fry on the Fly Productions.